attendance. It's going to be a fantastic meeting tonight. How many of you are here for the first time, maybe the second time, new to Focus on America? Great. Raise those hands high. Fantastic. That is what we want to see. Always having new blood, new people injected into the bloodstream. This is what it's all about. Getting engaged, getting plugged in to great organizations here. So why don't we go ahead and bow our heads and have an opening prayer. People still coming in. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the covering you give us each and every day. Father, we labor in vain if we try to build this house or anything without your hand upon it. And we pray your protection, we pray your guidance through this minefield of social and political issues where we need your guidance. We don't want to go off on our own. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be with other believers, other conservatives, other like-minded spirits. Give this evening to you. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. If you will, stand with me, face the flag in the back. Place your hand over your heart. And just like we did in elementary, middle school, repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. You may be seated. You all can read. We have a vision and a mission statement, both of which strike at the heart of what we're about. I'll just read the vision statement. It's beautiful. To promote individual liberty, family values, and the U.S. Constitution by active participation in the political process. That's what it's all about. Think about the generations. We're 13, 14 generations into America as a country by now? Think of the lives that have been, the blood that's been shed. We need to unite as a country. And judgment must begin at the house of God, so to speak. We need to all be on the same page. This is a great organization to do that with them. So, meeting schedule, we are going to be skipping our December schedule for obviously calendar reasons, holiday reasons. But Bob will be covering kind of our November message here in a slide or two. So no meeting next December. The consistent cadence we like to have is the third Thursday at 6 p.m. here in Black Patch, okay? So just keep that in mind, mark it on your calendar, send yourself a reminder. Third Thursdays, 6 p.m. here at Black Patch. That's the normal cadence. No meeting next December. Next slide. This is not hard to message out. We need help. Things cost money. It's as simple as that. We are always encouraging people to give of your time, your labor, other resources, anything you can offer that help further along the path. This organization is focused. It is single of purpose, and it is dedicated and committed to things that are going to help change and rejuvenate our country back to the way the Constitution was laid out, right? You can put your trust in that, but you don't have to. Look at the website, right? FocusOnAmerica.us. Join up, become a member of the email team. Go out to the YouTube channel, the Rumble channel, Instagram. There are a lot of ways to get plugged in online, and you don't have to, it's just in the comfort of your own living room, right? So get plugged in, but what we're asking for with this slide is financial assistance. Okay, whatever you can give. We're not asking for, George Soros money here. We are,
We'll take it.
well, we will. If we have a George Soros among us, feel free. No, we need financial help, okay, because these things do cost money. There are lawsuits. There are so many things going on that, time and labor cannot recompense. Please dig deep, and whenever you can, however you can, please be generous, okay? I'm going to turn this over to Bob Retch now. The next slides.
Okay, I was thinking while I was doing the slides this time that it's a season of reflection, and we want to give thanks to all of the good things that we have in our lives, which, living in a free country, we have many to be thankful for. We have our families, we have our health, our faith in freedom. But 2 years ago, on a personal note, 2 years ago, I was very frustrated after the 2020 election and was actually angry and upset and disturbed for about 2 months. And then I thought, hey, instead of being angry, I could take this negative energy and try to turn it into something positive. And it was then I started making some phone calls and looking out, trying to find an organization that fit what I wanted to do and try to contribute to get our country back, like as David says. And then one day I was at Sarah Ann's place of business, and she invited me to a Focus on America meeting, and since then everything has changed. I found an organization that fit the needs, and it also fit the needs of what our country needs right now. So in realizing that over on the X, okay. Yeah, I know. So in being with the organization for 2 years, it's not the organization that does this. It's the people that are behind it and support the organization and make it run. And I was thinking that in this season of reflection and thankfulness, I wanted to call out a couple people over the last 2 years that have contributed to our efforts here. And I just want to call out a couple names. Rebecca Cothran, she's not here. She usually sits out front and takes the donations. Her family is sick, so she couldn't make it. Great person, always first to raise her hand to say, I can do that or I can help you. David Kane, the guy that just spoke before me, was very generous. He came out of nowhere and said that he would step up and do the introductions and has been doing it for a couple months now. He was also very generous in donating the screen to my right and a brand new projector here that needs to be a little bit brighter, but we'll work on that. And then Sarah Ann, I mentioned her name before. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here. She is always there to help, and then throughout the 2 years have given a lot of her energy and labor to this effort. Joe Singerhouse in Birmingham. He came out of nowhere one day after talking to one of the candidates for the Senate. And besides fleshing out a senatorial candidate, he also stepped up and said he'd like to start a chapter down in Birmingham. So ever since then, he's been a big contributor to Focus on America and expanding our system. And over there on the right behind the table is Mr. Wizard, Dan Kraft. Without him, all of this AV production wouldn't be possible. He was also a big contributor to the debate we had, the gubernatorial primary debate. Chris Held, are you here? No, Chris comes once in a while. He was a gentleman that was instrumental in doing our candidate research tool on the website, and we're going to call on him to do some more work in the future. Clay, where are you, Clay? Raise your hand. Clay Parikh, another gentleman that came out of nowhere one day last May, came up and talked to me and said, hey, I know about these computers. And I thought, well, let's take Clay and turn him over to Rebecca. She turned him over to a bunch of lawyers. And since then, Clay is now a national figurehead, being on podcasts and contributing to lawsuits across the country. So Clay did a great job there. And last but not least, we have our fearless leader sitting over on the table over there. Without Rebecca Rogers, with her vision that she created this organization and her efforts and limitless energy, we would not be where we are today. So big hand for everybody. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, I thought it was appropriate since the election of 2024's, or one too many, 2022 is behind us. I thought I'd say a couple words about that. For the enlightened people in the room, I don't think you should be surprised. When looking back, nothing has changed as far as the MO in many of the states. The states I was very concerned about was Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado. Nothing has changed there. The machines weren't eradicated. It was business as usual. They were also some of the states that were very too close to call, and that's the ones you want to pay attention to because that's where they take advantage of with the machines. It's very easy to cheat with very little exposure to the nefarious people. One thing that really bugs me is that when you watch mainstream media or cable news, they continue to ignore the big elephant in the room, which are the machines. We need to go back to paper ballots, and they will not, if you notice, I'm a Fox News watcher, if you watch them, they will not mention election fraud. They avoid that like the plague. Next one. Not to be too negative, I want to go into a positive aspect here is that there has been progress. Many of you have been following Mike Lindell, Greg Phillips, Catherine Engelbrecht, the movies 2000 Mules, the movie Selection Code, and the big one for us here in Alabama is the FOA lawsuit. Rebecca will be talking about that and giving us an update. I found out in talking to many people across the country that there are hundreds of organizations like us, and they're popping up all over. Many of them aren't organized and integrated like they should be, but you talk to people in different states, and I talk politics to them, and they say there's an organization here, an organization there. My brother is from Pennsylvania, and in Freedom, which is a very small town, they started an organization there, and it got so big that they had to move into a warehouse type location because they had thousands of people come. And it was very enlightening to know that we're not alone here in this fight. As far as a red wave, the only place that happened was in Florida. It wasn't a red a ripple. It was a red wave, and it was solely because of DeSantis. DeSantis straightened up the state. So what we were predicting in the election came true in Florida because they were clean. The other states are not. And Alabama, unfortunately, is one of them. In closing with this slide, I was thinking about a quote that Admiral Yamamoto said, allegedly said, it's not, I couldn't find it in history, but allegedly he said that after the attack on Pearl Harbor, he says, "I fear we've awakened a sleeping giant." I think this is how I feel, in that we are a sleeping giant and are awakening to the reality of what's happening to our country. So we need to become more motivated and spend more energy and try to get our country back. It's a long battle, but it's worth the fight. Next slide. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca, please, and she's going to talk to us about the lawsuit and a couple other things, as well as introduce our first speaker.
Okay, so as you guys know, I gotta stand on the X. Standing still is, yeah, you're so good on your X's this way.
No, you're good.
There you go, there's your X. Okay, I'm just okay without them seeing me in Birmingham. They're tired of seeing me in Birmingham too. I just left there. So anyway, with our FOA lawsuit, as many of you know, it was dismissed by Judge Greg Griffin in Montgomery. We did file an appeal. It was filed, the briefing was filed last week. There was, at the Supreme Court steps, we had a press conference. It is on our YouTube channel if you'd like to see that. The brief was filed with the Alabama Supreme Court on Thursday. You can see it on our webpage. We were also appeared on Frank's Speech with Brannon House, and I was driving, so you'll just see my picture up there, and if you see my mouth not moving, it's because I was trying to be safe. We are going to have some call to actions. So this must be won in the court of public opinion. This is not going to be won by our politicians. It is up to us to do the work. And I know it's inconvenient, and I know none of us have extra time. I know it's really inconvenient. But if you want your conveniences, people, you got to be inconvenienced. So sorry, but not sorry. Many do not believe this could happen in Alabama. Members must share our emails, social media posts to make an impact. And many of you may have heard today or saw the article in 1819 News where incoming Secretary of State Wes Allen said that he was going to withdraw Alabama from Eric. That's a great thing. We don't like Eric. But before you go, ooh, Wes Allen is a really good guy. Remember that he is on the electronic voting committee. He is one of the people named in our lawsuit. He also would not sign on to our election integrity bill last year because he said there were no election problems in Alabama. So I want you, when you see that, don't go, ooh, Wes Allen's a great guy. He may be a great guy, but this could also be a ploy to say, look, we did something to secure it and take away from the lawsuit and to drag the red herring, basically. Next slide. Okay, so this is a letter. Guys, you don't have to read it here. If you are on our email list, you'll get a copy of this. It's actually legible. There's some random ones lying around on the table, and you'll be able to get a copy of. If you're not subscribed to our newsletter, go to focusonamerika.us, put in your name and number, and you'll get a copy of all these slides. So you don't have to worry about taking notes. Sign up for the email. We'll send you a link to every slide and everything that we say tonight. So this is a letter from John Merrill dated January the 10th, 2022. On it, and he is addressing every probate judge in the state of Alabama. That's who it's addressed to. Every one of them got one. So it's talking about the hardened computers that they are purchasing. And this is, I'm just going to highlight it for you. It is important to note that on December the 6th, 2021, the Alabama Electronic Voting Committee certified an update to the election systems and software, electionware system, which affects the election reporting management computer that your county uses to gather precinct results into a single set of results. So the purpose of this security-related update is to ensure that your ERM computer is able to run on Windows 10 operating system. Just now getting to Windows 10? How many of you guys have already been past Windows 10 a long time ago? The certification also provided that an ERM tabulation computer be a standalone computer that is not connected to a network of any kind. This is what our Alabama Secretary of State sent out to every probate judge in the state of Alabama who are over our elections in each county. It also goes on to say, for your county to be provided the funds to acquire from ES&S a new laptop computer which will run on Windows 10 and will be a standalone computer with no network capabilities. The laptop will come with ERM software already installed. We'll go to the next slide. And this is a copy of a purchase order. You guys will all have a copy. Share it everywhere that you can. This purchase order is dated January the 13th, 2022. The letter that I just referenced says that these were certified in December the 6th of 2021. So how can you certify something we haven't even ordered yet? And if you go down to the purchase order, it will also say the specifications for the EMS workstation include Intel Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. If they can't be connected in any shape, form, or fashion, why do we have that? You'll have a copy of this.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to ask you a quick question.
Okay.
Why in the world would there be a purchase order for just a single unit?
It's for each county. One goes to each county.
No, this is this is not the voting machine.
This is the hardened laptop. Hardened laptop. So then we'll go to the next slide. And this is where there is an article that you'll be able to see. I can't even hardly see this right now. But in Alabama.com, in May of this year, there was an article that John Merrill spoke in and that Judge English spoke. He was quoted in it. Judge English serves as the chairman on our electronic voting committee for the state of Alabama. So his comment it says, the new laptops do not have the capability of being connected to the internet, said English, who has been probate judge since 2000 and was election manager in the county for 18 years before that. Here is his quote. So there's not a way anybody could hack into and change the results on the computer where we receive the results from the precincts. The data from the standalone computer will go via thumb drive to a second computer that is connected to the internet to send to the Secretary of State, English said. The hacker, if he gets into our second computer and changes it, we've still got the original data from the precincts on computer A. English said, is that nobody can get to computer A from the internet. I present to you computer A. on this purchase order that you'll be able to see that it has Bluetooth and internet. Yes?
Hey, so to the gentleman's question, the reason that purchase orders was attached to the letter, because there was a form and they're directed to fill out the form and they have to order that specific computer configured that way.
For each county?
Yes, for each county. And that was straight from the probate judge where we obtained those letters.
Okay, next slide. Last Monday, a few of us went to the Tennessee County Republican Club. John Merrill was there. We all wanted to be respectful. But now we have explosive admission that our machines are wide open to the internet and that Alabama Secretary of State John Merrill misrepresented the truth before the Alabama Supreme Court. Listen to this video.
Secretary Merrill, I just wanted to say that I was really excited from the May Alabama, where you and Judge English actually, Alabama.com did a story, and it was talking about how you guys were doing such a great job and that the new hard laptops were not going to be connected to the internet whatsoever. So I got really excited when I saw that in May. But then I saw the purchase order for those hard laptops that was issued in January of this year, and the purchase order for that says that there is Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capability. So if they cannot be connected
on the computers,
yes, sir.
Because that data is transferred electronically from that hardened computer that we purchased in all 68 jurisdictions in the 67 counties to have one purpose, that's to accept those jump drives that come from that central location in that county seat. That data, which is the unofficial information is transferred from that county seat to Montgomery, and that's it. The actual official results will not even be received by our office for another week. That confirmation for the official results is done tomorrow.
Okay, so they can be, those hard laptops then are connected to the internet for the purpose of transferring the unofficial to your office?
That's right.
Okay, thank you for answering.
So
Yes, ma'am.
So
And then
those-
that's the information that's recorded and reflected on our election night reporting website. And that's why it says on the website at alabamavotes.gov, these are unofficial returns.
Okay, thank you for answering.
So if you have questions, and I may have asked the same questions they would have asked, no doubt. I would strongly suggest go ahead and write them down now. I know you have them. And next month we'll have Frank Barger, and I'll get Wes or whomever may come. And you can have answers to those questions before we have the meeting, and they can actually speak to it so that you're interested. So please don't take my energy as I'm negative about your questions or any of that. That's not what we do here at TBRC. Other clubs and organizations don't even let people speak. So I hope that you can understand why I'm being a little bit sharp. Go ahead, sir. One more question.
Okay, so this is the Died Suddenly promo trailer. This promo spelled wrong. Promo. So we're going to Joe. Next slide. Our first guest speaker, Joe in Birmingham, is going to introduce, and it is Dr. Phillip Triantos. So, Joe, take it.
We've probably heard so much about COVID and vaccines, etc. So what I came across some stuff that about less than a week ago, Rebecca told me that I needed to speak at this event tonight. So thanks for the heads up. This could be very hard. So anyway, I don't know. Is anybody hear that or see that? With Peter McCullough and Alexandria Dr. I just can we move the camera? Can I take a move it? That's the camera? That's the camera. Can I move it? Get over here something with that. Sit my nose, this is the biggest part of my body. All right. So I could have spoken about anything regarding vaccines, COVID, etc., but this kind of put it all together for me. And this was just about a week ago when this came out. But McCullough was interviewing this she's not a doctor, she's an MBA, and she was a pharmaceutical executive, and she's now an independent analyst. Go ahead, next slide, please. So basically, I'll go to the next slide, we'll come back to this one. No, one more slide, I think they missed my first slide. Yeah, they did. All right, go backwards, please.
Didn't miss it, that's the
Well,
way they did it.
The title of this, why some and not others? Okay, why do we see some people get so affected by the vaccine and others have no problems at all? And this is going to kind of explain it, which I didn't know about at all. And this is, I think, hopefully most of y'all will be able to. We know about the VARS reporting system, our government reporting system, and anybody can report to doctors, patient, nurse, whatever. And it's very ineffective. They did a study in Harvard in 2010. It's called the Lazarus study, and they actually showed that less than 1% of people actually report to the system. Doctors, it's very cumbersome, it doesn't work good, blah, blah, blah. There's a whole lot of reasons why people don't report to it. I mean, you can talk, I'm sure y'all may know people that have been vaccine injured, have had issues that didn't call their doctor or didn't report it. So, less than 1%. So we have, I think, close to 32,000 reported deaths in the world. You got to multiply that by an underreporting factor. There's biostatisticians and people have all kind of underreporting factor numbers. And Steve Kirsch, who y'all probably heard about, he's got a number around 40, 41%. Some people go up to 99%. The bottom line is you got to multiply it by a lot. So if you have, let's say, 30,000 deaths, you got to at least multiply it by 40. So you're talking, a ton of deaths, okay, almost 1 million deaths. And the latest statistic was that there are 200 million deaths, and that was from Dr. Hopkins from Canada. 200 million deaths and 2.2 billion injuries, adverse events. Those are just their projections of all the statistics from all the countries and all the government data, right? All the European countries, government data, we don't do that. Their data is phenomenal, so they just extrapolate all this stuff. Anyway, then VSAFE data, y'all heard of that? You know what that is? If you've been vaccinated, you're allowed to, you have a phone app. And if you get an adverse event, you report it to the government from that, okay? Well, what they found was about, they wouldn't release the information, but I'm sure y'all heard of ICANN, Informed Consent Action Network, that's Dale Bigtree's organization. Anyway, they made them, they forced them to release the data. They forced the CDC in a lawsuit to release the VSAFE data. That was, the government was hiding, they wouldn't let it come out. Anyway, they got it, they found that about 15% of people were injured, and about 7 to 8% were actually hospitalized after they got vaccinated. So then there's a whole bunch of other systems that keep up with who got injured and who didn't get injured. And this is the yellow card system that's in Europe, England, and then there's about 39 total systems that you can report to. And now we're at 1,000 peer-reviewed literature that have shown that there are fatal and non-fatal reactions to the vaccine. So it's not something we're making up. It's something, it's peer-reviewed articles. And they've all reached the same conclusion. So all this data, varying a few percentage, are coming close to about 15% of people that get the vaccine are injured in some capacity. Now, why just 15% and why not the rest? All right, next slide. All right, so what is the standard? In order to produce a vaccine or a drug, you have to follow the good manufacturing practices as a federal law. And then, of course, if you make a drug or a vaccine, you want it to be all the same. You want it to have the same look, the texture, and all of that stuff. I mean, if you look at it in the microscope, you want to have what it looks like from this vial to that vial. As we'll see later, that's not the case. All right, next. And the reason why, all right, we'll come back to that next. And the reason why is because this right here. This I did not know. But who's in charge of these vaccines? We think of Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, blah, blah. Who's actually in charge is the Department of Defense. They are the chief operating officer of the manufacturing of the vaccines. And they have sole authority on how it's manufactured. And this has been going on for a long time. They built an infrastructure back to 2012, buildings that are blocks long, and it's all over the country, all over the world. So they are in total control. Now, who authorizes them to initiate this is the the Health and Human Services executive or the leader, and that was Azar under Trump and Becerra under Biden, but that really doesn't matter at all. And then the chief science officer is the CDC, and they're responsible for developing and designing, getting out, but that doesn't matter because they don't care. The Department of Defense has total control. There's no law they have to follow. They can do whatever they want to. And it's made up, you would think, oh, Pfizer makes this in their lab, Moderna makes it in their lab, AstraZeneca makes it in their lab. That's not true. It's made all over the country. So it's a consortium of companies, and most of them are biological defense contractors. So it was never warp speed. This has been going on for a long time. They started working on genetic vaccines back DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, which I've heard about since 2011. So, and the reason why we're going to come to these vaccines that have no quality control and they're all different is because they don't have to follow any rules. They don't follow nothing. Most drugs have to follow the chemistry, manufacturing, control packaging. Well, who do they have to look up to? Who are they responsible to? Nobody. So, of course, if you have this company starting off making the mRNA, which is the active protein in there, and this country's making the lipid nanoparticle, and this company's making this, if this one's messing up, that's your weakest link. So it's all going to be messed up. There's no control at all. Next slide. All right, so here's the active substance we just talked about is the mRNA. And then the complete drug product, we just said, the lipid nanoparticle and everything else that's in it. Now, I brought this for people that don't know a whole lot about science, but the original trials of Pfizer used micrograms, okay? So the amount of liquid that they would have to make up at one time was probably the end of that syringe, okay? Now, this right here is a liter. Okay, they went from 0.4 milliliters to 900 liters at a time, making this stuff up. 900 liters. So you can imagine putting this all in a big pot of soup. And we're going from that much control to a big pot of soup, dumping it in and making their chemicals. So mRNA is extremely unstable. It breaks down, it degrades, it's the lipid parts of it, they can conglomerate, make little bubbles, whatever. Well, this is what happens. When you stir this up, or you mix it up, and then you break it out, put it in these individual vials, you may be getting the stuff where it's the most concentrated in mRNA. So they go in that vial. This vial may have half mRNA, half fluid, goes in this vial. This vial may have just all fluid, no mRNA at all. And so that's one reason why you have concentrated doses in one and not the other. The other thing is when you're distributing this stuff, they did make them in single vial doses. Now they come in 6 vial doses. So if you go to your pharmacist, he pulls it out, or whoever gives you the shot, and they got to put some saline, mix it very gently so it doesn't destroy the mRNA. It's only good for 6 hours. So just imagine, the pharmacist gives a shot, or CVS, or wherever you get your shot, they leave it there, and somebody else comes and pulls it out, same thing. Not going to be the exact same thing. Let's say 7 or 8 hours go by, they use the same dose. Maybe nothing in there by this time, or may just be all the debris that's in there. So it's so variable. All right, go ahead. All right, this is just an example of outcomes. J&J lots range from 3 to 5 adverse events to 5 to 6,000, depending what lot you got. So if you got this lot with only 3 to 5 adverse events, you're lucky. You got this lot that had 5 to 6,000, you're in trouble, and that included deaths. They also found about geographic clusters. So depending on where you are in the country or in the world, you may get a dose that's extremely toxic in this part of the country. The 3 worst, South Dakota, Kentucky, and Tennessee, and they'll narrow it down to a certain county. In Tennessee, there's the most deaths per county in the whole country. And you got to think about this. Tennessee, the county is Memphis. That's Shelby. What is in Memphis now? Low economic, socioeconomic people. A lot of blacks, a lot of poor folks in the inner city of Tennessee. That's your #1 place of deaths from the vaccine right now. So you got to wonder, is this harder? I'm just saying, I'm just showing the facts. Early on, believe it or not, the Health Authority of Orange County, California found a bad lot of Moderna. And they noticed all these people were getting sick and some dying, and they flagged it as an allergic reaction. So what did they do? They reported to who they were supposed to report to. It was on the news and all that. How did they rectify it? They sent the doses throughout the country to spread them around. So we had 3,500 more adverse events and 60 more deaths. That's how they rectified it. They didn't throw it away. They didn't give it away. They spread it throughout the country. All right, go ahead. All right. In 2020, when they started manufacturing this thing on a large scale, the FDA left it up to manufacturers themselves to quality control. So the FDA didn't look at anything. They just let it go. So you can imagine what got out. And then in 2021, they actually flagged a few of the bad players. Oh, this is a bad lot. And they didn't do nothing. They just told them about it. And then nothing was ever done. Nobody penalized. They didn't shut them down or nothing. So it continued. And then, of course, we talked about the more mRNA you have in your shot, or the better the integrity of the mRNA, the stronger the dose and the more likelihood you're going to have an adverse event and death. So if you get a shot that's bad and weak, that's good. I mean, you don't want that. And that's why you have all these people, I mean, friends, family. Well, you know, I'm fighting with everybody. It's like, you know, why don't I know anybody that died? Why don't I know? Well, I'm a physician. I hear it all the time. But, you know, the reason why you don't, because you were lucky you didn't have a friend or family that didn't get a strong dose. I mean, you got one with nothing in it. And so it's just so variable. Of course, autopsies have shown that people that have died have spike proteins, the actual bad part of the vaccine and the virus. And they made the vaccines, which nobody can, well, anybody with a reasonable mind understand, is the most toxic part of the virus, the man-made virus, is the spike protein. And that's what they made the vaccines with, the exact same spike protein. Why didn't they make it with the nucleic acid and every other part of the vaccine? They just made it with that one toxic spike protein. And that's the most deadly part of it. It's toxic to our body. It's the most closely related protein to our body, so it can sneak by our systems along with the nanoparticle around it. So it was made intelligent, I mean, so sophisticated to evade our immune system and to attack us. But that's it. So why would they make it with the spike protein to hurt us? The Japanese actually had a bad batch from Moderna out of Spain that showed steel particles in it. And instead of using it, they actually sent it back. So credit them, they sent their stuff back. All right, so a lot of different scientists around the country, around the world, have studied what's in the virus, including myself. But they found from nothing to debris to include magnetic beads, aluminum, cobalt, lead, graphene, and then a group of scientists just came out that there are some self-assembling nanoparticles where that if they put it in a Faraday cage, which blocks any kind of electrical stimulus or whatever from getting in, if you put your phone in a Faraday bag, you can't, those signals will come in. This thing will actually start disassembling. And if they take it out of the Faraday package or cage, it'll start reassembling. So that's one group of scientists. I wasn't there. I can't verify that. I'm just saying what's been reported. So some scientists have looked and there's nothing in these vaccines. Some scientists have looked and there's not any protein. There's no mRNA whatsoever in the vaccines. And some scientists have looked, there's all kinds of debris. I actually did several studies myself, and I've got a video of what's in the shot, and it's incredible, the debris that we saw. I can't verify, I don't know what it is, but I can tell you what, it's wall-to-wall debris throughout the shots I looked at. I looked at Johnson & Johnson and Moderna. All right, next. Okay, I don't know anymore. All right, anyway. Pfizer, 80% of the deaths arose from 35% of the lots, and Moderna, a quarter of the deaths arose from 24%. So 80% of the deaths arose from a quarter % of the lots. That just shows you that some of these lots are very bad and others are not. All right, go ahead. Okay, these are just some of my personal experiences. I want to bring this up, and so I don't know, does everybody in here raise your hand know someone that's been affected from the vaccine? Okay, so most people do. Anyway, this is, I'm going to go down this list, but Dr. A, who's a well-known physician here in this city, vaccinated, boosted. Called me up about 2 months after his booster and said, I'm having GI problems. Where do I want to go get my CAT scan? Don't know where to go. I look at it and I said, I don't see anything in your belly, but I see a little spot in the bottom of your lung. I said, have you ever had chest pain? And I knew he was, told me I was booster and vaccine. He goes, yeah, actually I did one night. I was driving home with my wife. I had some chest pain. And I said, well, this could be the sequela of a little blood clot. I said, why don't you go get a D-dimer? Check your D-dimer. The next day he did, and sure enough, it was out the roof. So I anticoagulated him. So here's a physician, all into it and has a problem, okay? All right, this right here, patient B, is a personal friend, got vaccinated around 8 months to a year ago, and all of a sudden develops this huge, nasty infection in his blood. And I asked my nephew, who's very close to this guy, I said, ask him what shot did he get his shot in? And sure enough, it's suicide. So he's got myositis, it's kind of ate up his muscle and cellulitis. So that's another person I personally know. This guy is a fellow parishioner of mine who turned 60 years old about a month ago and had shot, and we're not sure about the booster, but just got cleared from his cardiologist to go to Greece on a trip with his wife, and went to sleep that night and never woke up, had a heart attack and died. So, sad, sudden adult death syndrome, like SID, sudden epinephrine. And I don't know if y'all know this, but most kids that have died, or most of the babies that died with SIDS, the majority, 90+%, had all been vaccinated within the week of their death. Now, patient D, he is a close friend of mine, and he's a retired person in the city, well known. Shot, 3 boosters, calls me after his 3rd booster about a week later, hey, I've got COVID, I'm sick, would you please, what do I do? Said, don't go to your doctor because he's not going to treat you, you're not going to do it. Anyway, so I treated him. It was a hard one. It took about 10 to 15 days to get him well. Then about a week later after we treated him, his wife called me, hey, he can't get out of bed, he's really weak, blah, blah. So I said, take him to the emergency room. So take him to the emergency room, long story short, anemic, bloated up with blood, transfusion, blah, blah, blah. Finds out he's got a bone marrow issue. His family doesn't, I'm not going to say it, but anyway, he's got a bone marrow issue that's not good. And what does this stuff do? The nanoparticles goes right into your bone marrow, your ovaries, your liver. So another case I personally know. This guy right here, he's one of Birmingham's finest. Gets the shot because they made him get it when it came out early. All the police and paramedics had to get it. Has since developed shingles and a neurological issue with a severe headache. It took about 3 or 4 months to get rid of. This guy right here had 2 to 3 boosters, was talking to his wife. I've noticed, I know him very well, died while they're speaking in the den. This is another doctor here in the city. Blows my mind. Shot Pfizer, and about 3 months ago could not find a booster. So drives to another city in another state and get a booster. Gets a Moderna shot. Ends up in the ER with severe chest pain. And he recovered from that severe chest pain, but as we probably know, that's probably going to lead to myocarditis. You may probably have subclinical myocarditis, which is destroying all our children now. So another physician. Let's see. This is a lady that has some cardiac issues, and people say, well, this guy was sick, or this lady was sick. Well, no, we all have got issues. We all have certain underlying conditions. I mean, there maybe 1 or 2 on this room that's never have to take anything. I mean, so everybody's got an underlying condition. This will help get rid of you quicker if you do. So anyway, so this person was just worked up, came home, was spending, her daughter and her son-in-law were taking care of her while she was getting better. They ate dinner, she walked to her bedroom, boom, dead. So, fully vaccinated. This is I have a half-sister in England. She was Of course, you know, the Europeans, they're scared to death. They were all locked in, shot, booster, dead within about a month. Found her under a kitchen floor. They did an autopsy. She had a cardiac infarct. So, myocardial infarct. And so, my sister, that was my last living immediate family, and she died from this damn thing. Killed my mother and my sister. So that was her. And then I have another friend that his hypertension has gotten out of control. There's big believers in the shots and keep doing it. So I don't know what to do, but I said, well, maybe related to the shots. I don't know. So then another healthy friend of ours, young woman that has no issues at all, gets the shot booster, AFib. My mother-in-law, exact same thing, healthy as a horse, she's 84, I think, and never has a problem, never. Shot booster, AFib. I'll bring up this guy, he's a plumber. He came into my house about 3 days ago, and we were talking, and he said, I said, don't get vaccinated, because anybody that I run into, I tell, and I make a fool of myself, my family hates me, my kids hate me, shut up, Dad, you know, you're crazy, blah. So I don't care. This is the biggest passion I've ever had in my life. But I can tell one person, I can say one person, I'm going to do it. And I'll die on this hill, I don't care. I mean, they know that, but it is kind of crazy, you know, people think I'm nuts, especially my kids. But anyway, so I see, you know did that cause a blood clot? I said, yeah. He goes, well, my dad, he kept telling me to get the shot, but I wouldn't do it. He had a shot booster, developed blood clots in his leg, died with PTs. His father, this young plumber in my house the other day, within a month. So I said, that was the shot. Aunt Roberta, that's my wife's aunt. She lives up in North Carolina. Shot, blood clots, bad PT, and we didn't think she was going to make it. She was in the hospital probably for about, I'd say, almost 3 weeks to a month. And she survived. She gets out after she should get the booster. I said, yes, my wife got mad at me, so. So anyway, so there's another story. And then this, where's my picture? Oh. Look at this. Okay, anyway, this is a good one. This is patient X. This is what's frustrating to me is this guy has diabetes or pre-diabetes. He's been on metformin for a couple of years, and that is, I've been on metformin for a long time, and that does not cause vascular disease. You have to be, long time, high level of sugar, visual, small vessel disease. Okay. So he goes to his primary care doctor, and he has a toe. Have you ever heard of COVID toes? Okay. Goes to the doctor. I don't know if y'all can see this. I wish this was up on our slide, but he has a toe like this. Don't pass it around. Don't pass it around. I hope y'all meet me. Anyway, so he has a toe like that. His primary care doctor says, oh, you need to go. It's probably from your diabetes. Goes to the hospital. Okay. ER doctor, oh, it's your diabetes. The surgeon, who ended up partially amputating the toe, it's diabetes. I said, look, X, ask him for a D-dimer, tell him to run some other studies. He asked, they didn't do it. Not one of them said anything about COVID. He's been vaccinated and boosted. Not one person asked him about if he's had been vaccinated or, and that's the COVID thing. I mean, it's so clear. Where are these doctors? What are they doing? So, anyway, very, very, very frustrating. Actually, that's it. Do I have any more?
Next slide.
And this is just some numbers, most recent numbers from ours. I'll go on to the next one. Okay, vaccine remorse. Now what? All right, if you've been vaccinated, if you haven't been vaccinated, the good thing I say is that all of our immune systems are made by God, the best immune system in the world, whether you've been vaccinated or not. We can still take care of you. We can try to get as much of this stuff out of you as we can right here. We've treated a lot of people, and I wouldn't worry about it if it's in you. Just move forward and do the stuff that you can take to try to help get this stuff out of you and just build your immune system back up. It's like any other illness, we just got to build that immune system back up. So, With that, I think I will close. If you have any questions, if you want to hear anything else, I'll tell you some more. Oh, thank you, ma'am. Got to pay you now? Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
So, for friends that might get COVID still and are looking for places to be treated that might treat them with anything available that they need, like ivermectin,
You call right here.
right here.
Absolutely.
Where is here? For those of us who don't know where here is.
Oh, it's a Sparrow Clinic in Birmingham, Hoover, Alabama.
Do you do telehealth?
We do telehealth.
Just tell them what you do. Okay, does anybody here have any questions for the doctor? Okay, hold on, we have a couple of questions.
You mentioned at the end vaccine remorse and you can get it out of your system. Is there some practical things people can do now to get it out of their system?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch in it. I don't know if you follow the FLCCC, and everybody's got their own thing. The naturalists have one way, the FLCC has another. So to me, it's just, I would research it. I mean, we do it a certain way here with mostly nutraceuticals. We have a machine called an EBO2, which is an extracorporeal blood ozonation and oxygenation system, which actually does this. It takes your blood out of your body, and it filters your blood. It takes all the impurities out, any kind of heavy metal, aluminum, cobalt, whatever's in there, any of the breakdown protein products, blood products. And then we take it and we ozonate it. So we pump those cells with some ozone and oxygen, and then we send it through a UVC filter, which will irradiate any bacteria, virus, parasite, whatever, and then we'll put it back in your system. So that's been extremely helpful. And then we'll, of course, give you some other stuff that are beneficial to help get rid of the spike and get your immune system back into gear. And then, of course, there's other things that everybody has their own kind of protocol. We use ivermectin, et cetera. So it's just always so variable. But that's what we do here. We kind of use the EBO2 system, and then we will give you some nutraceuticals and some natural stuff to help get rid of it.
And for those of you who do not know, you may have remembered when Trump said you could have your blood sanitized, and everyone had a conniption that he was going to put Clorox in his veins. Well, this has every light spectrum in it, so your blood comes through, it's filtered, everything is actually filtered out, it's exposed to ozone. Then it goes through every light spectrum before it enters back into your body. Dr. Triantos had this done actually last week just for general health. The biohackers refused to it as an oil change for your body, but this is speculated that this is the type of machine that President Trump used when he said sanitized his blood, because the light spectrum actually does that. Any other questions? We have another question, 2 more questions.
Yes, my daughter was Special Operations, United States Navy, and they forced her to take the vaccine. She's now crippled from the vaccine, is meted out at 90% disabled. She is right now in Virginia. She spent a month in the Mayo Clinic, and the Navy told her if she went out of command, she'd be court-martialed, which is one of the reasons you're not getting reports. And also, the fact is that what happened with her is that she took the Pfizer vaccine, and she took the second one. She was sick on the first one, took the second one, and ended up at the Mayo Clinic. They tried to prove it wasn't the vaccine, ended up proving it was a vaccine. And her record was written up. Mo Brooks told her to write up a 500-word chronology, and she wrote it up. Nancy Pelosi blocked it for 2 months, and then Mo read it into the congressional record. So she's actually in the congressional record about it, but she was actually threatened with court-martial if she went on command. So that may be a reason why they're not hearing more about it. She told me the death in the military of people in their 20s is up 1,100%.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that's why one of his passions is the military.
I can give you her about it.
Okay, if you'll get, who was the other question?
I was just wondering what the age was that this occurred with. Was it like young people or older people?
Across the board. Across the board, I don't know if you know this, but right now, the insurance companies are having a disastrous time with the number of deaths that they're having to pay out and the number of disability claims of people of working age from 18 to 65. It's really having the 30 to 40-year-old group up like 40%, which is like an 800-year event that's never happened before. And so what's going to happen is that once the insurance companies start losing more and more of their money, they'll probably get behind it. And of course, where there's money, then there's finally power to do something. But almost all the big insurance companies, Unipim, and all of them are having significant increases in payouts, especially for people like that join a company and they're healthy and they're young. And let's just say, for example, Xerox. I mean, how old I am, I don't know if that's around anymore, but let's say they're Xerox and you have all these young guys and they're going to get life insurance policies for their wives, and let's say it's $1 million or $500,000. Next thing you know, a year later they got a shot and now they're dying or they're dead or and then they have to pay out these policies, and that's what's getting them. I mean, so it's in the younger age group. So it's across the board, but it's really hitting the young now, the 30s and 40s, 50-year-olds.
Okay, who else? I have two questions. What is your typical time frame for treating a patient with what you lay out, which all are offered here?
Yeah, it's variable.
Repeat the question.
Well, what is the typical time frame for treatment? And everybody's different. I mean, some people, we treat long COVID too, which is just as severe. We just had a lady come in from Colorado, and she was sick for 2 years back. Oh, no, over a year, but she was in the ICU in a medically induced coma, intubated for over a month. Was in ICU for 90 days, and survived it. But she has issues, right, neurologic, everything. And I started treating her out in Colorado with some low-dose naproxen and all other stuff that I treat with ivermectin, blah, blah, blah. She got a little better, but she's in that high altitude. Her oxygen is already, she's on home oxygen. Anyway, we get her here. I've never seen a turnaround so quick in my life. She came here like a battered old woman, and she's going to watch this, so she'll correct me. And she left here like a young, healthy child. And she's had a little relapse recently, but she's been off her supplements and kind of started doing her own things again. So I told her that's not uncommon. I mean, this is a lifelong battle we're going to be fighting. But I've never seen her recover. Her brain fog, she went from 10 to 3. Before she left here, she couldn't take a shower by herself. She was standing up, and she realized, I don't need assistance. She went out to eat. She hadn't done that in a year. So anyway, everybody's different, and every treatment's kind of gauged to what we see and how severe it is. Whether it's vaccine injury or long haul, it's the same dang spike protein that causes all the damage.
So do you have like your visual protocol, let's try that, reevaluate?
Yes.
And then you can continue, you kind of repeat it?
Yeah, yes.
Repeat of the initial and...
Or change it.
Okay.
Change it,
Add
yes.
some things and tweak it.
Right. And then, if I have to go outside of what we do, I'm still a doctor that I can use other things, but we try to stay away from some things that some other doctors are using because we're more holistic here. So it seems my experience here, and I've treated probably about 700 patients overall from COVID to long COVID and vaccine, that I'm getting good results here with what we're doing. So,
and then what about as far as initial labs?
We do labs, we'll check, the reactive approach, CRP, and D-dimers, and we do all the lab work. Yes, we'll send that off. We don't have a lab here, but we'll send it off and check all the labs.
And then what about microscope looking at the...
No, we don't have that yet, but my affiliate is getting one, so we'll be working together, that stuff, so.
You see that the patients, this is probably a variable thing, but I'm just, like the ones that had milder symptoms and come to you, their prognosis versus your lady in Colorado, it doesn't seem to matter.
Doesn't matter. If you can actually have extremely mild COVID. Matter of fact, the friend with the toe, he had it, didn't even really know he had it. I think he lost his smell for like a day, nothing, okay? And he's got that. All right, that's probably vaccine. Yes.
It's probably, that would be for the spike vaccine.
But let me get back to the long haul. You can have very mild disease, and if you don't treat it, that's why I like to treat everybody. I said, if you got it, I mean, the problem was the tests weren't reliable anyway to begin with, so probably half the people had the flu anyway at that. Okay, we know that, right? So, but if you do test positive and you do have a symptom, I would treat.
Yes, you can go, if you go to sparrowclinic.com. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and, can they hear us?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and let Bob introduce our next speaker. Just actually not it. And I apologize, it is usually not this disruptive, it is usually not so terrible audio, but when you get it, when you sign up for the slides, it will not be that way on the slides. It should be very clear, concise. When we're looking at it up here, it is. I don't know what happened.
Okay, Mr. Wizard, thank you. All right, we have Richard Hirschman here. He's a trade embalmer. Some of you who follow the news said you'll notice or remember that he was one of the first ones that spoke out with what he was finding and got some national attention. Mr. Hirschman, hello? Okay. He's a full-time trade embalmer who has been self-employed since 2015. He has been working in the funeral business since 2001 and graduated from mortuary school in Birmingham, Alabama in 2004. He and his wife, Bobby, have been married 26 years and currently reside in Ozark, Alabama. Where is Ozark?
Airport Road.
Dothan, way down there. Thank you for coming up so far. They have 4 children and 7 grandchildren. He was recently spotlighted in the movie Died Suddenly. And it's coming out, I think, on November 22nd? 21st. Yeah, look for that. The trailer is fantastic. Anyway, he has extraordinary courage in coming forward with evidence regarding the change in blood and fibrous material discovered during his day-to-day duties. The decision to make this public knowledge was his concern for humanity, his family, and for the truth to be known. I want you to please welcome Mr. Hirschman.
Thank you all for having me up here. I had no idea about this group, and be honest, the beginning of this evening was inspirational, because in reality it's love of country, but it's the man upstairs. We need to get back to the man upstairs. The things that I've been seeing are disturbing, and I understand there's a lot of people that have received this vaccine. Personally, I have not, but I have friends and family that are. And so my concern is we are all affected by this in one way or the other. So back in the real trouble started in January of 21 last year. I had no idea what was going on. I know everybody was being labeled as a COVID case. A lot of people were afraid. Scriptures come to my mind so often, and one of them was, I didn't come to give you a spirit of fear, but a sound mind. So I set my fear aside and I went to work. And because everybody was afraid of COVID, I was always called to do the COVID cases. And everything was fine. I just continued doing my work. But as 2021 started going along, sometime around May of last year, I noticed something was really changing in the way people's blood looked. I was not thinking about the vaccine. I thought, well, maybe it's COVID, maybe it's, because everybody was labeled as a COVID death. And I know that many people were labeled as COVID death that I question, but I'm just a trade embalmer, so I don't know. I would like to show you some images of what it is I'm talking about. And it has to do with this kind of stuff right here. in that bottom left right-hand corner there is what came out of somebody's blood. That one's not very big. Some of them are quite large. You notice that white fibrous material. This is the stuff that is concerning me. You go to the other picture. Sometimes they're really small, like up here on the right, on the top. And sometimes, if you just look at the bottom one on the left, I mean, they're almost the size of my hand. And then I have one more picture here that I would like you to see. That picture on the left over there is basically what normal would look like. This stuff here on the right looks like it has grains of sand or coffee grounds in it. The picture in the middle, it's kind of hard to see on this screen, but towards the bottom it looks like a very bad blood clot. But if you look at the top of it, it looks like some kind of a white fibrous material emanating from it. So as I'm seeing these things, I'm looking at this blood, and in 20 years of embalming, I'd never seen this stuff. I've seen blood clots, but not like this. And so I began to wonder, you know, all of the reports of people dying suddenly, these numbers of heart attacks and strokes, is there something happening in the blood that's causing this? Underlying issues. And I'm glad Dr. Triantos was on before me, because he explains why, you know, not everybody that gets these shots are damaged and hurt. And I don't have the answers why some people are affected and others aren't. But I have had so many experiences where I'm in the embalming room and the funeral director comes in and, hey, so what happened here? Oh, they were fine. They were sitting there at the breakfast table. And one went up to go get him a drink and just collapsed on the floor. Sometimes there are people just driving down the road, a single car, strange accident, runs off into the ditch, and they say they died before he ever left the road. And when I start finding these strange things, this is the similar thing. What I'm finding doesn't matter what they're dying of. It's the same kind of thing over and over and over again. Right now, I would almost have to say about probably 50 to 70% of the people I'm embalming have blood that looks like this now. So in 20 years of embalming, not seeing this kind of stuff, and since last year, I'm seeing 50 to 70%. Something's wrong. Something's very wrong. Now, Dr. Triantos, I met him a long time ago. Well, not a long time ago, earlier this year. I took some samples of these clots to his house. So we were trying to find somebody to look at them and to study them to see what it is. Because my whole point of coming out was to say, hey, something's wrong. Let's look at it. Let's figure out what's going on. And maybe we can figure out what it is. And maybe we can find remedies to help people. And I'm grateful for Dr. Triantos and your organization helping people that are injured, because that's the whole purpose. We need to find answers for people to help them. Some people will sit there and say, oh, well, you know, we've seen blood clots throughout all these years. And that's true. I haven't seen blood clots. Back in the day, I would sit there and say maybe 5, 10, maybe at the most 15% of the bodies that I would do embalming processes on would have some form of blood clotting. Well, when the guys that are doing the documentary called Died Suddenly, they came to my house and they were in my office and they were like, well, how often do you see clots now? So I pulled up the previous quarter and we added up the numbers, and only 12% didn't have clots. Talk about a reversal. It is huge. I want to answer some, I know this, I don't really do speeches very well, and I don't like to do slideshows because I get all, kind of messed up. But there are some questions that a lot of people ask. One is, well, does it affect one age group over another? Which I think I heard a question back here is kind of similar. And the honest answer is, it seemed to be affecting the older people more so than the younger. But I can't say that it's 100% true. It's not necessarily the older people. What's really sad is, like yesterday, I was called to embalm a 31-year-old who apparently died of a heart attack. Well, what's crazy about that is about 10 minutes earlier, I had a phone call from another person who said, hey, they knew a person in another area where he was at, 31 years old, died of a heart attack. I said to my wife, I said, well, it looks like I got to go embalm another 30-year-old. She's like, what's really sad is that used to be a shock, and it's no longer a shock. We're seeing it. Thank God it's not happening to everybody. I hope it's not just I hope we're not all, looking into a very, very dark future. But I think left alone, we will be heading to a very, very dark future. One of the other things that I'm seeing personally, just by being in funeral homes, because that's what I do. I do trade embalming. I work for about 10 different funeral establishments. The number of babies. And unfortunately, most of the babies that we're getting are so small that we can't really embalm. But it's not just me, I'm hearing it from the other funeral directors. They're like, the number of children that we're getting, the small ones, is alarming. I got a message yesterday of a 19-year-old girl who dies of a heart attack. We had someone down there near Andalusia not long ago, 14 years old, died riding a horse. Another one down there in Bonifay, what was he, I think about 17, practicing golf, found dead in a golf cart. These are not normal. This is not a normal thing. What's really scary is this whole vaccine, and I'm becoming more and more angry. I pulled up on my computer 2 days ago the Nuremberg Code. I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with it. What has not been violated? What has not been violated? I'm one embalmer. I've met so many other embalmers. New Zealand, Canada. I had an embalmer from Canada who a reporter contacted me, wanted some information, was doing a story on this, and this reporter called me back the next day and said, hey, to follow up, he reached out to some morticians up in his area. He says, there's this embalmer that's up here. She would really like to talk to you. She says she owes you her life. And I was like, what? He said, yeah. So he put me in contact with her. And her words were, you saved me from suicide. Because what she was seeing was the same stuff I was. She thought she was going crazy.
I've had comments like that, and it's so heartbreaking. I get people that call me, message me on Messenger, hey, my 16-year-old daughter, they're suffering. And what am I to tell them? I don't have the answers. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a person. I'm just an average person just doing what I do, embalming, and trying to bring awareness to what we're seeing. This embalmer that I've met, his name is Wallace Hoker. He's up from Indiana. What I like about what he has to bring to the table, because one time prior, I asked him, I said, would you speak out? He said, I don't know what else I can offer. Well, he's now speaking out, but he does seminars. He goes around the country, 30 different states. He's been up in Canada. He's been all over the place. And he's starting to put pictures up like this when he's sitting in front of a room of 50 to 100 embalmers. Has any of y'all been seeing any of these things since 16, 18 months ago? And almost every hand in the hand it raises. They all are seeing it. He asks another question. He says,
Prior to last year, how many of y'all seen this? Nobody raises their hand. So it's not just me. People are afraid to talk. We don't need to be afraid to talk. We need to get up and say something. I don't want to be... I don't want to be a bearer of bad news, and some of the stuff that I'm showing, like especially for the vaccinated. My son-in-law's here with me today. He's vaccinated. He had to get vaccinated for his job. Where's the you shall not be coerced? I'm sorry, that's the Nuremberg Code. Right. You should not be coerced. He was talking about two pilots. Dr. Triantos was. It's interesting. In September, I met a fighter pilot. Yep. She's injured as well. But what I'm really grateful for is Dr. Triantos and Rebecca and these other clinics, and I've ran into other people up in Tennessee that are trying to help people that have injuries. Because by not coming out and saying, hey, these are problems, we'll never get to the bottom of these. We'll never get to the bottom of it. And hopefully all of these different clinics that are out there trying to help, hey, we learned that this is helping this person, or this is helping that person. Because even the pilot that I knew tried the same thing, that EBU type treatment where the ozonate the blood. It was helping her. But it wasn't helping her totally. But it was helping her. And she goes to this other clinic, and then she's doing even better there. Is she cured? I can't tell you. I'm not the doctor. But she was doing better. But maybe there's a combination of this clinic here is doing this, and this clinic here is doing that. And it's my hope that all of these different clinics will work with each other and share their knowledge to help save as many people as possible, because 5 billion people across the planet, supposedly, according to Google, have received this vaccine. And if my biggest thing that bothers me is what happens when half of the world's population wakes up and realizes they've been potentially poisoned by their own governments. We are not each other's enemies. And even if you're vaccinated or you're unvaccinated, we need to remember who did this to us. Who did this to us?
Hold them to account.
They need to be held accountable. I got a call from a person that's so sick. Tried to send her to one of these clinics that I know that help people. But her job made her get vaccinated. She got so sick. Well, guess what? She lost her job. She can't work. She doesn't have insurance anymore. She doesn't know what to do. They need to be held accountable. And I say this, and maybe some of you in here might be responsible for this. I don't know, but corporations have boards. Small businesses are owned by an owner, and if that owner says you have to be vaccinated to work here, that business owner needs to be responsible for what happens to that employee. And if it's a corporate and they're on a board, those board members that voted to make sure that other employees get vaccinated, that corporation and those people need to be held accountable.
Right.
And the shoe fits on both sides. I don't care if they've got an R or D behind their name. Got to remember who did this to us.
We realize several of you might have questions, as we did for Dr. Triantos, for Mr. Hirschman. Birmingham has mics. We have mics here. If you could raise your hand, we do have a few minutes for questions. So we can get a mic to you so everyone can hear. Here.
I just asked the 1-year anniversary of my mother's death. I am convinced that those shots are what killed her. My question to you is, as an embalmer, are embalmers across the country here in Alabama, if I went to the embalmer where they did her body. And I asked them, did you find anything unusual or out of the ordinary in her blood when you drained her body? Do they have to tell me by law?
That is an excellent question, and I've had one recently, the same question from a person who just lost her dad. And here's the thing. When you lost you said your mother, that's hard. I'm a funeral director too, so I'm a trade embalmer right now. I don't usually meet families. But when I was doing that, we have a lot of compassion. Most of us in the business, we do. We know you're hurting, and we don't want to add to your hurt. So that's a tough question to ask. Sometimes the funeral director doesn't want to bring any more pain to what you're saying. But I advise this woman that asked me this similar question. Number one, if a case report is filled out, which is not a requirement, often on there, it won't have a spot on there to sit there and write, did this person have strange clotting? It might say, did they have clotting, but nothing, nothing to sit there and say that they would. Starting in last November, started documenting it on my records at home because I knew questions like yours would come up, and it has. But if you're curious, if you have a family member that dies, and you're curious, and you know they were vaccinated, because I believe this is going to be important in the future when we hold these people accountable. You're going to have to ask the funeral director, let them know, I understand this is happening. Ask the embalmer, I want to know the truth. And hopefully they will tell you the truth. Okay?
But what I'm faced with right now is my stepdad is still living. He's 93. Bless his heart. And I don't mean this disrespectfully, but when he's gone, my first effort is going to be to go back to them. Because I know they'll remember it. I know they're going to remember when they see something like that. They're not going to forget it.
Well, the truth of the matter is, unfortunately, this is starting to become the norm. There are a lot of times people in my field don't last but a few years because it's a very stressful job. And there are funeral directors that do not do embalming. And then there's people that are like myself, I'm both, but I only do the embalming. I don't meet with families anymore. But a lot of times the embalming goes to the new guys. And these people that were in the embalming room then move into the funeral side. And so a new embalmer that started last year, nothing is normal to them. And as time goes on, this is going to become normal. But you need to find out if you have this question and something like this happens, and you want to know, is this, if there's, you can even let them know, hey, listen, when they come to the house to pick up your loved one, if it's somebody that dies at home, you can sit there and say, listen, I understand that there's some unusual clotting going on. I want to know if this is in this person. I want to know. I want to know. You got to get that information quick because, if that funeral home handles, 5-10 bodies a week, then, 2 weeks down the road, they're not going to remember. And that's just a sad truth.
Deborah Birmingham. Joe, do we have any other questions, anything in chat, or anyone else here? Go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
My question has to do with the babies that you mentioned. I'm in obstetric nursing, and I've heard that you have been vaccinated or miscarriages. I just wanted you to elaborate a little bit. Are these the result of miscarriages, these babies, or are these babies born term, or how many weeks? Do you have any insight you can share on that? I'm curious about that.
Well, I can say that a lot of them are getting closer to full term, and I've had some that have only lived maybe a few days to a few months. And unfortunately, I do not always know the vaccine status because I don't get to meet with the families. But I do know that some of them, I know of one that had multiple babies at one time, and two of them died. One of them was born dead, and the other one died 2 months later. And then that the individual, the mother, was vaccinated. Whether they're, I mean, I can't prove it. I just do know that others in my field are starting to notice the increase in fetal demise. And unfortunately, when they're really small, it'd be, they're not full term, they're really hard to embalm, so a lot of times they're not.
Richard, Phillip, I know you don't know everybody's vaccine status, but someone was asking about blood transfusions. I know we spoke before in the past about, you probably know a couple, but can you kind of elaborate on the numbers that you may not know about blood transfusions and the kind of plots that you're seeing here?
Yes, I can. And so there have been cases where I had found these strange clots, and I was like, surely this person was vaccinated, because it's almost like I could tell. And then found out they weren't. And I was like, that's interesting. I wonder why this person has these strange clots. And then I asked the funeral director, I said, well, that's interesting. Do you know anything about their history? Had they received any kind of blood transfusions? And the answer was yes. I've had them that were in, somebody that was not vaccinated, but had multiple surgeries. So, blood transfusions are an issue. I talked with Dr. Ryan Cole about the issue with blood transfusion, and is it possible that it somehow could be, transferred to an unvaccinated person? And his words were that it was of great concern. Can we prove it 100%? Not exactly, but I'm pretty certain that it's not looking good.
Okay, we have another question on the floor here in Huntsville.
Yes, I wanted to find out, since so many families are opting for cremation now, as an embalmer, do you ever, at that point, have the person with you and look at their blood? And if not, then is the numbers going to be really skewed as to what's happening?
That's another great question. As the economy continues to go down, which is not solely the reason of the economy, but the cremation rates are on the rise. And when a person is cremated, especially what we call a direct cremation, where there's no viewing of the body, there is no embalming. And so there will be no way to know. There will be no way to know. And that's what's really scary, because think about how many people, and this is the other thing, a lot of the younger people are the ones that are cremated. A lot of the older people still hold on to the traditional funeral. But that's not totally the case anymore either. But as we cremate more and more people, we're not going to be able to see these things.
Any other questions in Birmingham or here in Huntsville? Yes, over here. Huntsville first.
Yes, I've read that some embalmers are saying that it's very difficult to embalm people, that they're having a very difficult time because of these huge clots. I've read like John O'Looney in England, for example.
Yes. Yes, it is true. For those of you that are up here and are interested or curious, I brought some of these samples with me. They're on this counter over here if you wanted to come by and take a look at them. I've Cloroxed the vials that they're in so you can see them for yourself. And usually I bring these bottles with me because sometimes there'll be a doctor or a scientist that I might meet that wants to study them, and I'll let them have it so they can study it.
Well, you also mentioned the young lady that can no longer work. I believe it's Children's Health Defense is now trying to encourage anyone that's been injured by a vaccine that their employer mandated. They're encouraging people to file workers' comp claims. They're saying if more people do that, it puts a burden, and we want this not to ever happen again. We want to put a burden on employers, on insurance companies and such as that, so it never happens again.
Amen to that.
So,
It needs to happen. There need to be lawsuits. People need to be held accountable.
Let's go back to Birmingham quickly, and then we have a couple more here.
I just, you said you had mentioned Ryan Cole. Have you been able to get any samples to him, and if so, what are the results?
I have. Dr. Ryan Cole, she was asking if Dr. Ryan Cole has been able to receive any samples that I've, from me. And the answer is yes. For the longest time, he wanted me to keep his name anonymous and not mention his name. But I saw him in Idaho back in late September, along with Dr. Peter McCullough, which is one of the reasons why I'm here. Dr. McCullough made a comment that he said in a group, he said, "What can you do?" And he said, "I have spoke to people that have a following of 10. So no matter how big or small the group is, if you have the opportunity to speak, then speak." And so this is why I'm here. But your question with Dr. Ryan Cole, yes, he was one of the first pathologists that received samples. I've sent him probably 20 vials of samples, and when I was with him in Idaho, he's also told me he no longer needs my samples because he's been receiving samples from surgeons. So if they're coming from surgeons, they're coming from living people. So the idea that these are post-mortem clots, which is what some of the fact checkers are trying to say that they are, they're full of crap. I'm sorry, I hate to say it. It really ticks me off when they sit there and try to tell me that I've been doing this for 20-something years. I've spoke to embalmers that have 30, 40, 50 years of experience. Have you guys ever seen this? And the answer is always no. I know what blood looks like. I know what blood clots look like. And these are not normal blood clots. And it just really, it gets under my skin. Just because I don't have doctor or PhD or whatever kind of pedigree behind my name doesn't mean that I don't know what I know. And most doctors do not see the inside of veins and arteries. Surgeons probably do. But I see blood on a regular basis.
Another one here, please.
Richard, some of the interventional radiologists actually pull me out of orders now.
Thank you. Thank you.
And actually, if you are in Alabama and you have been vaccine injured or you lost your job because you refused the vaccine, Focus on America has been able to get some of our members some assistance. We've been able to get some of them help. We do need those names, though. We've referred some to some attorneys that are willing to help them. Our goal is to sue the state of Alabama because they put out this information, because they encourage this. Your state department, your state health board, Dr. Scott Harris, encouraged you over and over to get these. That's disinformation. It's not these guys that are giving disinformation. So we encourage you to go to Our Fight Online. We've already been able to get some help. I'll include that in this slideshow as well. But if you have been injured, it will show up as a petition, but it's a safe way for us to be able to keep up with it. Put your name on there. You can do it on behalf of a loved one. And just be sure to put your email address and your name. We even had some sign in from Tennessee, and we were able to transfer them and get them some help in Tennessee. So please be sure to know that's there. I can't promise you that we will be able to do anything, but we are getting that information so that we can possibly have that information to take some attorneys and get some assistance.
Running short on time. Birmingham, do you have any other questions?
No, we don't.
You do have another one here. Huntsville.
Yes, good evening, thank you. I have a question pertaining to recently, I love to give blood, so I discovered that when I went to give my blood, anybody living in the United Kingdom between 1980 and 1996, I cannot give blood, donate blood here in the United States due to minimize the risk of mad cow disease. Now, with that said, going forward, is there a way that we can, if we have to receive blood, have access to the type of blood where the people vaccination, number one, and number two, is there a way that the blood banks are segregating and taking the blood on vaccination people's hair blood versus the same as they are doing with the mad cow disease situation? Thank you.
That's a great question, and it's interesting. It brings back a memory. I was walking into Walmart in Ozark, and the blood bank was sitting there, and this young lady was like, "Hey, would you donate blood?" And I said, "You know what? Since I've been an embalmer, because I'm around blood so much, I'm afraid that I might transmit something that I might receive while I'm embalming." I said, "By the way, can I ask you a question? Have you noticed a difference in the blood between vaccinated people and unvaccinated people?" She says, "Oh, no, we take the blood of both." So, I don't know. I don't think they're separating it. They're not separating it. What can you do if you know you're having surgery? From what I understand, there's ways that you can maybe have some of your blood taken out prior to surgery, and if needed, utilize your own blood. You've had it done? Okay, so that's good. So, I mean, there is ways, but, you know, the blood transfusion thing is a great question, and it's one of those things. And this is how I look at it. God is in total control of everything. I believe the only way back from where we are in this world is God.
You got that right.
And so if I'm in a horrible car accident, and I'm bleeding, and I have to receive blood, I have no choice but to just trust God, and if it's my time, it's my time. I'm not going to be afraid. Just like when COVID came out, I'm not going to be afraid. God did not give me a spirit of fear. And you know, in the very beginning, when I first came out publicly in January of this year, there is fear. There's fear. I was warned. You understand you're going to be saying something that's going to go up against a $100 billion a day industry. And they might want to take you out. I was offered to come out anonymously. But I don't know about any of you all in here. But for the last, from 2016 to 2020, I'm sick and tired of anonymous sources say this and anonymous sources say that, and there's a bunch of crap behind it. I'm putting my face, my name, my reputation on the line. What have I got to lose? I'm not going to be afraid, and if they take me out, well, you know what? That's part of God's plan. You know, Jesus, when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, was sweating blood. Father, if you can remove this cup from me, please. But let your will be done and not mine. So I put my total faith in God. If it's my time to go, it's my time to go. Now, I'll go down with a fight. I'm a soldier, too. I'll go down with a fight. But I want to thank everybody for coming out, and I'll be here if you want to ask questions, or if there's more questions. I'm not on the timeline. It's up to y'all.
No, we really want to wrap things up. We want to remain sensitive to people's time and schedules. But Dr. Triantos in Birmingham, thank you so much. Richard Hirschman here in Huntsville, thank you so much for your time, for what you've presented. This has been well worth your time. I think you would agree. We want to hit a couple things. Go to the website, focusonamerika.us. There's a way you can donate there. Click the donate button. We've had a tremendous outpouring of cash actually tonight. Please, in any way you can. This is not an evangelistic, kind of plea for money here, but things do cost money. All right, and yeah, this is all volunteer. No one's getting paid here, but you can know that your money spent here goes directly to direct work. Okay? So know that. Please have a blessed evening. Thank you so much for attending. This has been tremendous. I hope you attend again. Plug into the website, sign up for the newsletter, become a member of Focus America. Thousands online, 1,200 growing here. Become a member. Have a good